Welcome, Fallon. Class 2. Yay! We're actually going to have a sleepover afterwards, which you're missing out on. We decided to watch some movies. We're pretty excited to be here. Anyways, so starting out, we just had some different activities. So we're missing Danielle and Abdi. I'm not sure if Abdi's coming back. We'll see. It was Abdi, right? Okay. Was it? Abdi. Abdi, okay. So anyways, we have got a bunch of different, was everyone able to go through some of the resources that Mark sent around? The ones that we forwarded out with the video?
The core stuff?
Yeah, we can go through some of those again too. And too bad we don't have our projector game. We could watch some videos in class and a little movie time, but that's okay. We do have a nicer room than last time. Okay, so for starters, actually, I was just going to open up a discussion if we wanted to talk about, Anthony, we're on air, so you got any awesome messages to share? Do them now. Hey, with the world. This will be on YouTube for everyone to see.
TED Talks.
TED Talks, yeah. This is going on TED Talks tomorrow. Okay, so I was just going to open it up to talk about the book. Because we modeled a bunch of the ways you all could be designing your survey off of what the different sections were in the book. So I just wanted to make sure that the book is actually clear in any way, and then we'll go through some different activities as teams and kind of hit on some of the survey design components. So in general, how was our little English book? Yeah. Right? Yeah, we did too. I know, I kind of wish all books had those. It's pretty sweet. The drawings are pretty stupid, but that's okay. I think we're going to forgive them also because they made a book that cost $12, which I'm guessing is a blessing. Yeah, that was part of there was all these other books. There's textbooks that are like $150, and I think you would have used about 1/10 of them. Okay, cool. So was everyone able to cruise through? Pretty straightforward. Okay. And how many people actually felt like they used it for 80% of their survey making? Like, was it a good reference, or was it just something you read through and you kind of like understand at that point?
Are you surveying us on our survey?
Whoa, Inception. Yeah, this is a test. No, I'm actually just curious because moving forward, we want to have something as lightweight as possible, but also make it effective. So
it was good.
It was good?
Yeah, I used it, but also other surveys I've seen.
Nice. What'd you use? What kind of resources?
Well, I was basically from memory thinking, how do I define the people, basically male, female, etc., income, where they live, and basically the general who am I talking to, who's answering the questions. And then for me, I wanted to understand whether a product was marketable. Because before someone starts producing many, we want to make sure that it's cost effective. Yeah. So that was the main focus for me, is basically trying to figure that out. I haven't figured out how to understand who, basically I'd like to ask, but I can't. Do you want to save the world? Do you want to help people? Are you willing to spend more money on local artists? Are you, those kind of questions that you really can't actually ask and get all those answers.
I feel like, yeah, we can talk about that too, just in challenges, but I know with a lot of brands that do things like that, they would maybe embed it in a bunch of different questions, so they have a lot of options to choose from, because yeah, it's like, do you want to save the world? Who's going to say no? Like, well, no, maybe not. I feel like most people, even if they don't really care, are probably going to say that. But if you embed it in a bunch of different questions, it's probably easier if they have other priorities, like what's most important, cost, saving the world, having flexibility, all these kind of things. And then the other one is just if you have people like throw out phrases that are most important, you might find the people who are interested without kind of leading them. But that's a real question.
So mine was a combination of qualitative and quantitative.
Okay.
Because I also wanted, why do you like this product?
Yeah.
To try to get some kind of feel, what feelings it's generating.
Yeah. Well, we'll go into that in a second. I actually have a little section to break down kind of how you built it out. And I also, since Fallon isn't here, we're going to use her survey as a workshop too, so we can go through and give her some feedback. But one thing I just wanted to start out before we jump into everyone's individual surveys, let's just break into groups, and everyone turn to page 16. It was the SMART goals. It was kind of the basic way to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success with your survey, mostly when you're in the research design stage. And so what I was gonna have everyone do, and I'll just walk around and help because we got even less people today, is go through and with the survey that you created, answer one of each of these. So was it like, how is it specific? How is it measurable? And just list those up on the board, and then let's compare them all around, just to kind of get a feel for that. And then we can open up a discussion and talk about what were the most challenging. So
for like each question?
I'd say just each survey in general. Just take the survey that y'all created, the whole one, and then break up in groups, and or if you're alone today, just write up SMART and then talk about how your survey fills in any of these goals, or if it didn't, that'll be something that we can work on today. Everyone clear? Cool. Got hands? And I'll actually take a look again at Fallon's and see if I can do the same thing.
Oh, sorry. Was that out loud?
That long day. Should we do some like house music to get us going? Doing our SMART goals. Come on. It's gonna be amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna put. So just grab some board space and start answering those questions. What's that?
You have to do it again because I want to have a clearer image of what.
Oh yeah, so just seriously, write SMART. First assignment.
Did you use some new shoes?
Okay, so I'm going through Fallon's right now. So yeah, it's just 1:16, and if you need to reread the SMART goals just to get kind of acquainted. And it doesn't really have to be like a check yes, 0 no. It really can be like in the specific one, for instance, it asks kind of what is it really? Like is it tracking surveys, explorative, is it creative? Like what's it like? And so you just kind of know better, and then that'll help you with your bigger research goals to say if you're actually answering.
Alright, so the first one is about the quantitative qualitative, right? I didn't print yours because I saw that you put it up today. So I printed these last night. What's yours?
Oh, okay, I'm trying to build signs.
Okay, perfect.
Possibilities or something.
Yeah, I didn't send mine because I just received them last night, but I can.
So it's called the artist.
Yeah, right. So, I didn't. And I have
Right,
thinking.
yeah, we have to narrow down all of them.
I have my photos, and maybe I could just two different photos. And
Two different ones, two different people's.
with the idea
Questions.
that the
I think you could send them like
that would help me on the website too. Presentation and also then
I think our questions are pretty specific. I mean, they are speaking to either quantitative.
So basically, one of the typical.
for.
My idea. Exactly.
And I
That's-
mean,
that was the
like,
concept.
if you think about it, questions
So,
like,
this is smart.
how are therapeutic or alternative sentences decided? That's a specific question that has to do with
Whether the researchers learned through the fact finding.
So, it's just very good.
There needs to be a specific reason.
So we have qualitative and quantitative.
Read on that.
And some of ours are looking for numbers, and some of ours are looking for like a yes or no description.
Yeah. You don't have to, I mean. Smart.
I mean, it's coming from different, I think it's coming from different.
I know that's the thing, is we have to do it now.
Okay.
In general.
Well, we combine the two, so do you want to do yours separate?
So what about if we want to know,
It has
For
to be
instance-
two.
Okay.
yeah,
Measure.
Both of them.
you want both of those, because like, for instance, like, some of the questions I think is like, what's the margin on our
Yeah,
hand?
'cause you
Or to find out what the margin rate.
Yeah.
Right, so you gotta find out what the price is.
I'm
Yeah,
actually
that's
going
what
to
I
go on, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but it's
fine.
okay to do
People that qualify
Yeah.
this, yeah.
yeah, then you have more balance.
Yes.
And I did in stats class, so
Yeah, that's it, that's it.
don't take it with James Graham.
Do take it with Rasmussen, he is awesome.
Really?
Yes.
I think in terms of being able to find the right people.
Oh, really?
they can be interviewed.
Oh,
I think it's more of a question of who you're gonna
I wish I could do it.
Well, finding right people. So I'm putting it.
Really?
I'm realistic,
Yeah,
but the
for the
questions
right
relevant.
For the right price, oh, really?
It's
For the
realistic,
right price.
An opinion on it.
It's determined by the individual. How much can you afford?
I think it's realistic, because I'll find people that.
I like that.
do.
Yeah.
Friends forever.
I'm curious, because we're doing two different.
When do you need it? Well, that's.
I mean, because we're talking about the therapeutic factor, we're talking about the food factor.
Then we're talking
I know
about-
being in that direction, these are actually good things.
So you can say qualitative or, questions that specific to categories.
You could just put, food in one and then the judicial report.
I mean, these are good things.
Right.
Are they both qualitative?
Timely, well, that's it.
I would say it would be the food. quantitative.
Or no, with qualitative, but like,
Oh,
Because she has, she's answering the first question.
so specific to.
But also, this is also what people schmuck on the internet.
Yeah.
Do you do this for individual questions or is it just overall?
Overall, just to give you a feel. And actually the strength in doing it not just, I mean, it's good to look at the individual questions, but more so like how do the questions
Yeah.
meet your overall goal?
Yeah.
Like with Fallon's, there's a couple like questions that probably could get thrown out and other ones that could get put in. Just like saying about how it's part of it.
Yeah, like I have a question, do they shop on the internet regularly? Do a large percentage of their shopping on the internet?
Yeah.
If they don't, they don't count.
Totally, yeah, they would be relevant. Yeah, and that's like in the same way, I don't know if any of you have been selected for those like market research things, like they ask you those elimination questions. What's that? Yeah, most people do. Yeah, for those ones that you can do, like, you have to go through a screener because they want to find out the story.
Price range,
So I'm not sure which of those.
Okay.
Like, I'm
I
thinking
have
of
to do
people
some type of
in the
comparison.
US that are organizations that do
Yeah, so you want to talk about a survey for public health providers?
Yeah, but then I also wanted to ask people in Togo if like these costs are realistic
Uh-huh.
or like if people can actually pay.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, okay.
And we'll talk about that today too with kind of like with Mark's, remember, throughout the whole thing, we barely talked about who his beneficiaries were and getting their information. It was all about the customer. And so I think each one of you needs to decide on what's important. And in a lot of cases, you need to do two, because you need to make sure that, like in your case, the person who's buying it is potentially different than, you know, the women who would be making it. And therefore, you're having two different audiences that you need to understand intimately.
Yeah. So also, would I need to ask organizations in Seattle that already do those things or work in Togo? Because I don't think anybody works in Togo.
You meant first time.
You mean here or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wait, so you're saying how to go about doing it?
Yeah, like should I ask organizations in Seattle that are already doing
Okay.
microfinance sort of things, or should I ask?
You could, and there are some who work in Togo. Yeah, totally.
Well, like email.
Oh, there's other organizations in Togo. You can find it. Yeah. Yep. It's a good place. It's a good place to work.
I know. I mean I agree.
You agree? Yeah.
But
I think you can find them, and I think you'd also find people who would be able to give you a feel based on experiences in other West African countries too.
okay.
Not that you can generalize, but like that specific area of West Africa, I feel like there's a lot of similarities. Yeah, Ghana, Togo, yeah, Cote d'Ivoire. I mean,
Okay, I'm just wondering if we're measuring, if we think that the program is
Alright.
successful, or if we think
No.
You're going through all of them. Nice.
Yeah.
to assess what needed.
We'll go easy.
Hey,
We're
Sure.
going only
These people did this. and
What's that?
These people did this. And
Yeah, it was the other one kind of share
Okay.
how it all worked out.
Achievable.
I know, yeah,
Trying to understand.
way more than just drawing pictures. Okay.
Achievable. Okay, so I know that for my food survey, and will be achievable because I have specific goal that I want to.
Is the target population available?
Specific crowd.
I want to try to how to put it, I guess just because, I kind of work in the food industry or whatever, so I know a ton of people.
Right.
So that's how I know I'll be able to persuade them to be interviewed. I
Okay.
have direct contact.
Access to them. So direct access. Okay.
Yeah.
Should I just say like food industry, local food industry?
What was your question on
Or
achievable?
person?
Yeah, you can say it's different, it's people say it.
Right.
So basically, it needs to be achievable in terms of being able to find the right people, persuade them to be interviewed.
That would be.
That's the issue, is what you're thinking through.
Right. Yeah, finding enough people that aren't friends or friends of friends.
Or what are you worried about with friends of friends?
That's easy.
I depends on the approach.
There, walk up to
Just go to the court. and
Well, because it's.
I'd like to have income level, but if I enter it with the idea, you can just.
And you can
get
also
whatever
call
you
like
want.
different.
Yeah.
People, are hesitant to share
Oh, yeah.
online surveys. They want to-
Yeah.
So that may not be that question, but I find I didn't have enough
Me either.
to answer that one, is of course with friends.
And if you call
Yes.
like.
You could, or what you also could do is,
Generally more
there's
than-
ways you can anonymize it. There's different kind of
Yeah.
survey tools that you can use where they would just have like an ID and you'd get all the demographic information. You just wouldn't have any things attached to it, which people probably a lot more people do. If you think it's important. And if you have enough questions where you think people would have like kind of a reaction to it, that would be a good way to go.
That's, that would. Yeah, this could get really into that.
Yeah, right? Yeah. You start to realize really
Well,
quick.
we have specific people for two different things, so obviously it's gonna be relevant to like what they're doing.
Yeah, we should tweak these ones.
Hey, what's your next?
Yeah, mine is kind of all over the place because I'm.
What's your next
Right.
DGI event?
So, you know, I still
I
just
just
kind
kinda,
of,
yeah.
there,
I think that's good. You
Oh,
probably
okay.
have information for both. You seem like you're familiar with food industry. You were talking about this food truck or whatever before.
Oh, no.
I could assume that because that's very rare, so I was like, oh, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, they should probably agree with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you also were talking about
So,
that.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, you're on both sides.
I'm like, I go into that.
Oh, when's the next one?
I'm actually not sure. So for the last one?
It's not gonna take too long to, because it's saying there's like several countries that we can use a large sample size.
It has to be at least.
I don't think I had one.
No.
Events
Good,
going on all
good number,
Yeah.
it has to be like 100 just to get like a good number, but yeah, yeah,
Random surveys.
yeah. Well, if you could do like at least 100, that'd
for each section.
be, yeah.
Or I guess not, because we're not really dividing them into two separate surveys, right?
It has to be two separate.
We are.
Yeah, if everybody goes.
That's true, because then you don't want
People
someone
that's
working in the
100.
grocery store.
We talked about this in the last class, and what was he saying on the real
For, oh, hey there. How's
For
it going?
surveys, how many surveys we realistically need to have to get like accurate information? Somewhat accurate.
For this class or
In general,
in general? For the class, a lot smaller than you need to like, take it in front of investors. I would say 30 people would be a pretty good.
For class.
No, that would just be pretty good in general. I'd say for class. So for this first one, you're gonna do 10. 10 people. Yeah, 10 solid surveys. And we'll talk about that a little bit more today. And that's what is due by our virtual class, which is on the 22nd. And then after that, you're gonna do 10 more. So do 20 total. So you'll have like a pretty solid sample size with an achievable number.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Does anyone want to, or let's go around a little bit and actually even share a little bit more about the surveys. Did y'all just finish up? Would you like to start? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Start.
they do.
First up, what was your, how many questions are in your survey?
too many.
Too many? How many?
Yeah,
We all compiled them.
Yeah. We came up with more, so we now
25.
cut them down.
Wait, what's that?
We all came up with like almost 10.
Okay.
So then we could cut some out and keep some.
Okay.
So
But,
that stage.
but yeah, cut them out. Maybe today you can work on cutting them
Yeah,
down.
that's what we were planning.
Okay. How many are you shooting for?
10 on each survey.
10 on each survey?
Because we're gonna split it into two surveys.
Okay. And who are the two people that you're surveying? Or two groups?
Food industry and the judicial system.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Interesting. That doesn't.
Tell about them. I mean, it makes sense, but
Well, just to get the information that we need in order to get the program off the ground, we need information on the food aspect and then also on the rehabilitation aspect. So we
Okay.
can't really combine them together,
yeah.
I don't think.
Because someone working in a grocery store, the question on our survey is like, what are other possible therapeutic things that people have as an option, alternative to sentencing or to drug court or anything like that? They're gonna be like, I don't have no idea.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Well,
So
it wouldn't, yeah.
Those are two different populations.
Okay.
that can deal with.
Totally. And then, and we were just talking about that. I feel like every group's gonna have to decide if they need to do those two surveys, or if you could get away with this one. With yours, it sounds like it makes a lot of sense to be doing both. All right, maybe just go through and kind of explain some of the answers on the smart grid and what questions actually paired up with that. Like what questions made it so. Go for it.
Well, specific. A little confused on this one. So we have both qualitative and quantitative surveys. Yes. The qualitative is going to refer to the food survey because we need to know like actual numbers, right?
Quantitative.
That's
So there'll be a bit of each of the qualitative and quantitative in each category. Cause yeah, like she's saying, you're gonna wanna know like the price of organic foods that are being sold. And you wanna know what percentage of the produce in a store or food desert is organic, or even like for a food desert, do they sell any organic food, or not even organic, but do they have any fresh food whatsoever? So that's gonna be quantitative. And then
How are you gonna ask a question for the price of the food? How does that work?
like the markup.
The
Or
mark-
well, the prices are all there,
Okay.
you know, in a grocery store naturally, but
Yeah.
it would be nice to know the margin that exists between, per se, what they buy from the organic farmer and then what they mark it up to sell it in QFC.
Mhm.
Because that's where you're gonna know what profit you're gonna be able to make.
Oh, so you're actually looking to see like how profitable selling organic foods is.
I think that would be a good idea.
that
Cool.
would be smart.
Yeah. No, totally.
I thought that's really good.
I think another thing you can do is there's a third track. I remember we talked about a little bit and they chat about at the end, the ethnographic surveying and research, where it basically be like going to the stores and spending time looking around.
I'll get a job at the grocery store just to find out.
Yeah, do it like a spy. Nice. Sweet.
Such a go and take notes, just observe.
No,
I feel
exactly.
like I'm
You
in
can
camera.
Yeah, you can compare like Safeway, QFC, to Trader Joe's.
Totally.
Because they all price organic differently.
Totally. Yeah, so you're probably gonna get an average, and there's definitely Quora would be another good place to look for that and try to figure that out. Cool.
So then the qualitative was more like asking about, you know, like what other alternative options are available. Do people have a choice to choose their alternative options? Like, are they aware of them? So those kind of questions that you're thinking you could either walk up to the courthouse and ask, because it should be public information.
Yeah.
Or call nonprofits who have programs for people in need of these things. Because like different places have drug court, which is not an option, but it's like a different sector you can go off of.
Before you're going forward to just for Fallon and for Monique, could you give the 2 sentence of what you all are really trying to learn from this as applied to your project?
To see if this is actually something that could work,
But specifically what?
if the program would work and if it would make a profit.
Okay.
And also assessing if it's needed,
Yeah.
right? Seeing if an alternative program like this is needed for the public to access.
Yeah.
Is there space
Perfect. Yeah. Cool. All right. Keep on going now.
for it? So
Yeah, that works.
It's for
A or M?
and measurable.
Oh, yeah, we wanted to see if it's, it has a need, and, yeah, see if it will make a profit, and compare the different, compare people who just go straight to jail versus people who do some type of sentencing alternative, just to check the numbers on that, to see what's the reoffending rate on that, just to see if it's even worth something moving forward with.
Okay. And how are you all doing that in a survey? Because I think another thing to remember is that a lot of these can just be like primary research, like research you're doing, looking through paperwork, interviewing experts. Just as like a reminder, there'll be a difference, and they're both super valuable, but there'll be a difference between surveying your customers and your beneficiaries and doing research on your overall field or like the overall intervention. So yeah, my question would just be how are you going to ask questions to learn about the comparison between prison and alternative programs?
Specific to King County, Seattle, maybe?
Just like asking people who are within this area? Or?
Yeah, just the people that work within that court system,
Okay.
just to see how the people did that had that option.
Okay. Do you all have someone in mind for that? Like the people that you'd be able to access to kind of.
Danielle said her uncle is a judge or something.
Oh, so you'd maybe be able to
Yeah.
connect to people.
Yeah, I know somebody that works in the DA office too. So
Huh. Okay.
I'll probably ask him too.
Yeah, or maybe you could even ask, see if they, again, I'm doing a school project for you to Bothell. Can I talk to you and your colleagues about this? It'd be great to get some experts. Okay, that makes total sense. It sounds like it might be challenging, but it'd be really interesting.
Yeah, the questions probably won't have to be pretty specific.
Yeah. To give it challenge, but then you'll also be able to do research because I think a lot of that will be public information too that you can just look up.
Yeah, that's why we need to narrow that down, because I think a good amount of them would be nice for the survey, but they'd also be things that we could just start researching just from drawing up the questions.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, achievable. I mean, it all is kind of related, but we believe it's achievable based off of access that we have to people, and we kind of have these split up. So this is like the food, and this is the therapeutic options. But so just direct access to people in the food industry. I know a lot of different avenues of hotels and people that work for Whole Foods, and I know people that work in restaurants. So I feel like I have ways to access information that way. And then we're talking about using public records and nonprofits to gain information for the therapeutic aspect.
Okay. Cool. That sounds totally achievable. And then, just better understanding what Anthony was describing about getting to those people to get the breakdown helps a lot too.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Realistic. So
Yes.
with all the questions you have, hopefully by the end of the day, you'll be able to carve out.
It's definitely realistic.
Yeah? Wait, why are you laughing?
I'm like, does that sound convincing?
Well, they're good questions, and they're not,
Yeah.
and there's definitely people in our community who can answer them.
Cool.
So it's just
That's awesome.
finding the people, making them specific, and doing work to find out the answers.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll be the assignment. You'll have some time for that too. And then time frame, you were just saying it was realistic to do this for 10 people.
Right, yeah.
Cool. And so the way we were originally envisioning it was like 10 people per person within a group. So you all would have like a significant market size. Yeah, so you guys are 40, and you'd have a lot of comparisons. For people who are in smaller groups, stick with 10, and you'll do 20 by the end of it, and we'll get more information from there.
For ours, since we have the 2 surveys, does that mean we need 80 or?
No, that'd be even better. Split it up. Have
So
do 2 teams.
20, and then 20.
Yeah, that would be the best. Yeah, because they'll give you this like a comparable amount as everyone else, and you'll get to answer both those questions. And for people in smaller groups, depending on how much time you're feeling like you're having and how easy you are with the surveys, if you have 2 groups, it'd be great if you could do 10 and 10. But if you're feeling like that's too much of a challenge, we'll figure something out. All right, you're up. Yeah,
Okay.
you're on camera. You're on TV.
All right, first question, is it specific? Yes. What I'm trying to do is, number one, find a group of people who do a large amount of purchasing on the internet.
Yeah.
And these are, we're trying to market individually created items, usually clothing related. So the pricing can be, the effort and the materials can outweigh the amount that people are willing to pay.
Yeah.
So we need to clarify that. So, the question, let's see, is it specific? The question is, are they marketable? Are the products marketable is what I'm trying to figure out.
And do you feel like your questions are able to kind of get that feel?
yes.
What's it? Just out of curiosity, I'd love to hear some of the questions. What are some?
What I'm going to do is, I chose 5 or 6 different products, and I'm going to represent each product with 2 different photographs, 2 different types. For instance, I keep hearing, oh, well, we have to do arm warmers. Well, I've been to stores looking at arm warmers, and some of them are very bright and ugly, and I never buy it.
Yeah,
But maybe that's what people like.
ugly stuff.
Right. And or maybe they like their idea was like black. So, and also setting a price that basically the average of what I'm seeing out there and seeing whether people are willing to pay less. I'm hoping, I'm not sure this will work, a lower price, the median price I'm seeing out there, and a little bit higher. And seeing what.
To see where people pay.
Right.
And what was it? And everyone else, feel free to jump in on any. What was the question that beyond the price that you felt like got to the specific of marketability?
You mean whether people.
Yeah, just.
Oh, that was it. That
was the main one.
That was our main one, because if they don't shop on the internet, I'm not interested. In
Totally.
it. Although some of it might be valid.
Yeah.
Like what they're attracted to.
Maybe. Yeah, I think you'll have to decide.
Yeah. So looking at the answers, but my main source would be people who shop on the internet.
Okay.
I shop a lot. Most of my shop on the internet. I haven't been elsewhere forever.
Yeah, not only most people.
Just general shopping on the internet or specific to what you're trying to market?
I would be basically gifts, and that was another question. Your last purchase, was it for yourself or was it a gift? So I think that pretty much clarifies too.
Yeah.
Because some of the things that are being sold are more likely to be purchased as gifts than for themselves. What was the next question?
Measurable.
Measurable. Well, some of them are quantitative, but also because I have the photographs, I'd like to hear their reaction and have them react. For instance, one of the products, she has hunted high and low to find vegan leather and pork, and it's a little bit higher priced. So is that worthwhile? Is that a good selling point? If I have one photograph of 2 similar bracelets, but it's regular leather, one is stressing the vegan, what's the reaction? Because it might be that the vegan's not worthwhile.
Yeah.
Because it may be that people are not willing to pay a little bit of markup for that. I don't know.
You said it's cork is what they do?
It's cork. Yes.
Oh, interesting. I've always seen the vegan leather store in the University District, but I never had any idea.
No. Well, your leather, you say anything vegan leather means not leather.
Yeah.
Base. But what she's using for jewelry is based on pork.
Oh, cool.
It's interesting. So whether people get excited with that kind of approach,
Okay.
whether they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, definitely important.
Okay, achievable. I said question mark because I wasn't sure I could find enough of the people that shop a lot online that are interested in this kind of stuff. I mean, I know they're out there, but whether I can find them. 10 people next week is enough.
You got a little more time than that.
2 weeks.
You got 2 weeks. Yeah, you got a lot of time. Did everyone see too one of the resources Mark sent out? Did everyone read the Mechanical Turk one? It's called MTurk. Check it out again. I'll re-forward it. But it's this really interesting program that's used for all kinds of stuff. And it's basically if you have a question, kind of like so Quora, everyone read about Quora, you put a question out there, people answer it, you can see what questions have been answered in the past. With Mechanical Turk, you basically would put out a request for an interview, for instance. People use it to validate products all the time. And you could say, I'll pay you 50 cents to answer these questions. I'll pay you $1 to talk to me for like 4 minutes or whatever. It's really interesting because people don't usually use it as like a substitute for employment. It's more like something you do instead of like playing solitaire, like you like answer stuff. But yeah, there's instructions on how to run it. And so if you were running into a huge barrier finding people that you thought were appropriate, I'd say go online. That's where you're going to find more of a sample.
Realistic. I think if I find the people, yes, it's realistic. But then the question is, it's kind of, I think it would be fun. If you're looking at the photographs, it's like online shopping. And people who do internet shopping.
Well, enjoy it.
Do that.
Yeah.
That I think is realistic. Timely, I said yes, because I don't need it till spring, but.
Yeah. Is that launch date?
Hmm?
That's launch date?
Yes, yes.
Cool.
So,
Nice.
so I think we need information much earlier though.
Yeah.
Because why should anybody waste time developing 100 unique
Totally.
bracelets?
No one's gonna get them. Totally. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts?
That maybe, you said there is a vegan leather store somewhere?
Yeah, University District.
So if you could probably contact them,
Mhm.
the student from the bottle. And,
The greatest. You can get in any door,
yeah.
any club. Student eat a bottle. Social enterprise class. You get in the club.
What I would ask them is the difference between the orders they receive through their online website and the people who actually come to the store. Because those are the people buying the exact product you're talking about. And then you could figure out, do they have a lot of traffic on the website or not really, or vice versa.
And one untapped source here is I make friends with small stores, go and buy a couple things and whatever. And I could go in as a student, but they're buying on wholesale. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether the current survey would be worthwhile to use, but maybe in the future.
Well, that'd be something to think about. You don't necessarily have to do it now, but that would be like a breakdown of, like we talked about before, B2C, so you've got a bunch of customers, or B2B, where you're really just working directly with businesses and you find that wholesale is actually the best way to go. You always have a guarantee for your product and you don't assume all of the risk. So you could work up a more like store-facing survey to see the kind of things that they purchase as being a customer. So something to think about.
Yeah, because, and that's a giant source for this. My daughter does a lot of jewelry and went into a bead store with her. And then she had moved on.
Yeah.
And I heard a woman say, she comes in all the time. She's such a sweetheart. And I'm thinking, oh, source of information.
Nice.
And, you know, that's how she got, she found the core vegan leather. She just asked and they did research for her and brought it in.
That's awesome.
And they said the immediate reaction, see, this is a source. They said the immediate reaction when they put it out, people were coming up and saying, oh, look. They were excited. These were, of course, jewelry makers,
Yeah.
but they were excited about it. So that's
Cool.
a good source of information. And obviously, some people get excited about it.
Yeah. Cool.
I think it'll work.
So I'll start, how many questions do you have right now?
Basically, for each type, I have the 2 photographs, and it's basically would you purchase it for yourself or a gift.
Okay.
What amount would you feel comfortable paying? I thought 3 different amounts would work probably in the middle set, but there might be a different way of approaching it.
I'd say there's even some resources in the book for doing those kind of.
Questions.
Yeah, I'd look through the appendix and I can actually find the section for you, but they can give you some advice
And then
on multiple choice questionnaire.
qualitative would be what attracts you to these, because I'd like to hear how people describe them.
Okay.
Because that would help the website if you know what people get excited about.
Yeah. Yeah. Even they'll even give you some advice. There's some open-ended ways of doing questions on that where it's like, and I think a lot of people is like, what would you do with this? How would you wear it? And people kind of develop a story and they tell you kind of all the interesting ways that they would use it. And sometimes there are ways that you wouldn't even think of. Yeah. I think that's something that I've at least experienced with like different market research things that companies try to do is they want you to like basically tell a very personal story about your relationship with a product or a potential product, because you get so many more kind of like juicy details of things that maybe you never would have thought to ask. So yeah, opportunities like that, as long as you can kind of reel them in and then standardize. So you don't just have a bunch of people's wild opinions. Essays. Yeah, because you don't want to have to deal with that. But yeah, you could definitely, I think that's a solid start.
Because I like to see what excites people.
Totally. Yeah, do that. And because your beneficiary is, I mean, customers getting an awesome product, but it's mostly the women who are making these and have this.
My goal is not just the women that are creating these things, local artists,
Yeah.
but also, like I said, I would like to match some of the profits with Kiva and use company match Now, I haven't investigated whether they have amount limit, a minimum amount that company can pledge, or I haven't.
Probably just be like an individual, whatever.
Because that's, I'd like to put that on the website with the idea of that was happening, but also then your name is out there in Kiva as a company match.
Yeah.
They have a list of companies, so it's kind of.
Oh, to get us a bigger, yeah, I don't know about that. They probably have like levels where big companies are involved, but
I'm curious, I haven't investigated.
I bet you can get a profile on there and just figure it out. My question is mostly around, do you think it's necessary to learn more about kind of like the work balance that they're looking for and what they want to be creating and kind of earning and all these different things?
Right, I think everybody be part-time, because you cannot support yourself.
Okay, so it's just another thing to supplement income and connect the women together.
Because the people that I know that create this sort of thing, they go in and 1 year they're popular.
Yeah.
And next year their product doesn't have a home.
Yeah,
So,
okay, that's a
it's
challenge.
very erratic.
Yeah.
So they can't support themselves
Solely.
until they create something new.
Yeah. Cool. Sweet. All right, thanks for sharing. Who's up next? Go for it.
It was it's more what you were talking about, it's more personalized. So my target demographic for the survey was, I mean, ideally men and women between ages 24 to 34 in the local area, and also they had a wedding in the last 2 years.
Okay.
I don't know. I know the code talks about not being too specific. Like, you know, less than 100%. So, the questions were targeted more toward their personal experiences with their wedding. So, kind of, did they take sustainability into account when they were planning it? What kind of services did they have, and if it was through a third-party company, then we would take that into account too. If you know, just directly from the customer to the service, then that would be taken into account, because what I kind of wanted to see is if most of this demographic, if they were just getting all their services in a package rather than they're doing separately. And also just kind of seeing how important sustainability was to them. So that's how it's specific to their unique situation. It was definitely measurable. I had a mix of both quantitative and questions.
What were the different ones, or what were the quantitative examples? What were the qualitative examples?
Yeah, sure. So, a few questions that I asked were approximately how much did each person that invested into the wedding spend individually? So that kind of gave me an idea of, is it mainly the parents paying for the wedding, was it the grandparents, was it like they were paying for the whole wedding themselves, the couple? And also some qualitative questions that I asked was how was sustainability something that you took into consideration, and if so, what factors were most important? So like food, travel, decor, floral, if you're hiring local businesses, and that would be important too. So that was measurable.
Unlike the questions when you're talking about how much you spent and who paid for it. So with what you got your age group, which I'd even say maybe you'd want to add another 10 years on that. Did you base that off like a number of when most weddings occur? Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like a 5-year range on both sides of the average age.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So,
that might make sense.
thought it, like, that might make sense, but I also thought about that too. I was like, well, really, anyone could get married.
I think people get married later too.
Yeah.
Beyond that, but I mean, if you're finding that most people are in that area, it makes sense to be there. But I think the more important question is figuring out, because you're talking about a pretty wide representative audience. How do you feel like you'll be able to get kind of the right diversity of demographics of people to understand different income ranges, or do you think that initially it's all gonna in one kind of income range?
You know, I I feel like that's one huge thing that I should have taken into consideration, considering that this is going to be a program for low income couples.
Or maybe lower income, yeah.
Um,
Something to think about.
I think I have to get that off
Cool, yeah,
for sure.
that sounds good.
Achievable.
Yeah.
So achievable, I thought was yes, because that information would be immediate, it was based on what they can tell me from their experience from the wedding. And R is
Realistic.
yeah, realistic. Also, I think kind of goes along with that based off their experience. I think the information gained is pretty realistic. It's not really anything that can be skewed by, you know, what they imagine it could be or what they imagine that I want to hear or anything. It's solely based off what their personal experience was planning the wedding. And then timeliness. It would be local.
Yeah. I'd say maybe one thing on the realistic is if there's information that you want them to recall, like beyond just like how much of the whole wedding cost, which is probably something most people can recall. But if you wanted more specifics, maybe it's something where you combine it with a questionnaire where you prepare them just so they could realistically give you all the information you want. And that's something you can all think about, is when it makes more sense to send something out where people actually have time to go through it. Like they talked about, the way they called it was, there's everything from the depth interview to the focus group to the kind of more ethnographic research, and then there's the other term for the one that you can send out and get kind of more of an in-depth survey response. Cool, nice job there, Annie. Do you have any questions for the class or any kind of?
Yeah, so one big question I had, and I really kind of just to finish on the dark with this, was that I was really thinking about what you said last class about Fair Weddings United possibly being a B2B company as opposed to B2C.
Yeah.
Because then it'd be more consistent, you know, demand as opposed to being, I guess, a direct company with customers. So I created the survey with taking into consideration the customer experience, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think it would make more sense if I was doing this.
Doing the survey?
Yeah.
You could do both, because I mean they're both going to be really. I mean, say you did 10 of each, or say you did 10 people who've had weddings, and you did like 5 venues or 3 venues or something like that. You could get a basic feel, and both would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, figure out a number that makes it reasonable, but I think it could be really good for the business.
Okay.
Anyone have any?
What age range did you say? You said 24 to 34?
Was that Seattle average or countrywide average? Because Seattle is probably higher. Don't ask me why.
You're going for the like low income demographic, right?
Well, it's a mix of both. So
Maybe.
to refresh everyone's memory, I mean, there are a lot of ideas with this company. So it would be like a scholarship program almost. So we would have a customer base of people who were paying for market value weddings. And then those market value weddings were subsidizing the weddings for couples in the low income bracket. But it's a scholarship, so we don't call it subsidized, but it's pretty much just subsidized.
So,
And yes,
Oh, sorry, go
definitely
for
older.
I was gonna say, I think it would be interesting to see the difference between young couples who got married and then older couples who were married, because I'm thinking if, this isn't the same for everyone, but like, my mom, my dad's wedding, was like a big wedding, like most people. And then when my dad remarried, his wedding was kind of smaller, and, it was more practical. So I'm just wondering if that older bracket who's maybe marrying for the second time is more interested in using resources and that type of thing, because, it's not their first big day, but it's still a big day for them, so maybe they're more interested in recycling and,
Alternative ideas.
yeah, just different ideas, because sometimes those first young couples who are getting married have a really set idea of how they want their wedding to go, and then they go to extreme lengths to make that happen.
Yes.
So the perspectives to compare them would be kind of interesting.
Her last wedding I went to, she was 40, and it's very, very really conscious.
oh, interesting. What was it like?
And probably
Just-
simple.
It was in a park. She spray painted jars for vases. She made flowers. They didn't look like paper flowers, but they looked like live flowers, but they were actually, she made them out of paper. It was just great that she had all these green ideas and
Do it yourself kind of
inexpensive,
stuff.
do it yourself.
Hmm.
It was a lovely wedding.
Cool.
It really was. They had the photographer, and she had 3 dresses. They were all secondhand dresses that she collected. She actually had a collection of 10. She
Wow.
could choose 3.
Isn't that- Wow.
But the whole point is, she had bought them like in Goodwill. and
Yeah.
This was her day, and she had a ball.
Cool.
But yeah, it was very green.
So Annie,
That makes sense.
in serving people, it seems like you want to focus. I mean, your business is going to focus on all demographics, but for your survey, it seems like you might want to focus on the people who are in the bracket that can afford the weddings primarily, just to get in, willing to pay what they have paid, to see how they'd fit into this equation, and then the kind of scholarshiping will be dependent on these people in most cases. So I think it would be important to make sure that you're setting the right numbers for what people are willing to pay at the high end. But that's just a thought. Any other questions? Or any other ideas to throw out? How many questions did you say you had? Like roughly?
I think numbers then, I have around 20. That varies because it's kind of like, what talks about is like, oh, you can answer yes or no. but kind of
It cuts off some.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think 20 is probably a pretty good number to have for your survey.
Yeah.
Depending on like how in depth they are, I think that's probably pretty solid. Yeah.
So when we're actually gonna be doing this, if I decide to do like 3 B2B and then like 5 B2C surveys, will we actually be contacting like companies, like asking them?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so you have to figure out the best ways to go about that. And we can help you with it. And that's what the call on the 22nd, the virtual class, is just basically for people if you're having trouble with the surveys.
Okay.
And I'll just be there. And again, like this class, these are all just to workshop your ideas and make sure you're on the right track. The virtual call doesn't have to take the whole time anyways, but we'll be available for you.
Are we doing like a conference call with
Yeah.
everybody? Okay.
Yeah, I'll send out like a webinar invitation.
So is that on Skype?
We could do it on Skype. I usually use like GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar. You just get an invitation in your email. Super easy.
Oh, okay.
Nope. Or you may have to download GoToMeeting, but it's super easy and it's free for you to use. Pretty good. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
You want to go?
Can I borrow your book? Okay, so for specific, I did 2 different surveys. I did one for NGOs in Seattle that do similar work to what I would want to do, and then I did a different survey for people that I have connections with in Togo who work in healthcare, who would have an idea of how much it would cost or how useful it would be. Measurable, I have both quantitative and qualitative questions for both surveys. My goal would be the cost of how much an NGO in Seattle spends on an example is like malaria medications in Togo or in another West African country that has similar rates of malaria. Or in Togo, I would ask how much do people go to a doctor, and if they do, how much it would cost if people don't have access at all. Achievable, I think that it would be achievable with the combination of the two. I think it would be better for me to do an ethnographic survey when I'm actually there for Peace Corps to have a better idea of what is most needed.
Yeah, that'd be really cool
Yeah.
to get to go into the Peace Corps with actually some tools.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people spend a lot of time in their first year just kind of not knowing what to do first. So that'll be awesome.
And those are right. Thursday. Realistic. I think it is realistic. I think the cost that I came up with would be realistic, and to ask if those would be possible for people to pay, or if it's similar to what they would pay at a hospital. I think the only problem is that it can vary so much from the local clinic to the hospital, and it can vary a lot between what different NGOs pay. And I also considered if I was going to ask if there's an NGO that supplies free healthcare often in their community, because then there wouldn't be an incentive to get any sort of insurance. And for timing, I have at least until June.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that your departure? Wow. Okay. What could you? And actually, we're gonna go. I'm pulling up the outline. So we're gonna go over research objectives in a minute, but just in general, when you're looking at this at specific, with the 2 different groups, how are the questions you're asking them differing? Like what are the different feels of the 2 surveys?
I think, at least from the view of NGOs, there's often ideas of what is best that are made in an office in Seattle.
Yeah.
And the questions are more aimed to figure out what would actually be best for people in Togo who would be buying the insurance.
Yeah.
And then what would actually be funded by people in Seattle.
Okay. Cool. What big questions do you still have?
What do you mean?
Just around, I mean, just in looking through any of these questions, do you see what seems difficult to achieve? What seems unrealistic? What questions do you still have about putting it together?
Mostly, I'm a little concerned about how people are going to approach it being insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And how NGOs would feel about doing microinsurance when it sounds. I don't blame them, but I think it would be a better alternative and more affordable way.
Well, so that's a really good thing to think about. You want to make sure, I mean, a lot of these are sensitive issues, like there's a lot of sensitive issues here. Yeah, sounds as well. Like, you want to make sure you're not asking anything that's going to bias them one way or the other, is going to associate you with something they potentially either have an extremely favorable opinion of or a really bad opinion. Because in the case of the favorable one, like They might give you fluffy answers. They might just tell you what you want to hear. In the other case, they might give you extremely negative answers for no reason. So as you're thinking about this and you think, and actually that's what we're going to do next after we go through Fallon's, is talk about like who are the people? What's your sample? Write out a couple sentences on who they are, and that'll give you a better idea of, am I really making a survey for them, or do I have a potential to offend them, bias them, change their opinion, or is this something that will be just totally objective? So that's another thing to consider. That's a really good question, because insurance would be totally a red flag kind of thing.
Is there another word?
Well, that's the thing. You don't really have to. You can describe the trunk. You can describe the big ears, but you don't have to say it's an elephant. Like, is kind of the thing. Just talk about the program, and more so in this case is just talk about all the different features. Like, you don't necessarily have to say, "Hi, I'm a student from UW Bothell, joining the Peace Corps. I want to start this insurance organization. Can I ask you some questions?" You could just say, "Hey, I'm doing a survey on rural healthcare in Togo. Can I ask you some questions?" You might even find healthcare is something that's challenging. So that's kind of the thought. And they, even in the articles Mark sends around, there's some examples of that where people teach you how to not bias your survey flow, because it happens a lot. Okay, so Fallon, we got yours right here. I just went through and talked about them, and I'll actually read some of your questions here from my phone just so everyone can hear. So again, Fallon is doing research into scholarship and admission resources for all students into college. And she was trying to get a feel, basically share your thoughts in regards to information about how to navigate the processes of college and scholarship application and admission. And if you all remember, her basic assumption was that there wasn't enough resources and that underrepresented people are, extremely underrepresented for access to basic funding, admission, mentorship programs. So her questions were, just because she had a short one, which Fallon, just from what you're hearing, I think you're going to need to add some more. The one she had were, do you think that adequate resources exist for college applicants? Do you believe that current high school students are adequately informed as to how to access or find these resources? Do you feel that current high school students are equipped with the skills needed to successfully apply for and ultimately be admitted to college? Or do you think that there's a bias regarding target demographic for such resources? And 5, in your opinion, who is ultimately responsible for informing college applicants about the college and scholarship application and admission process? Just from hearing these 5 questions, what are some initial thoughts you have on, or, yeah, Elizabeth?
I feel like I was on the defensive.
You're on the defensive, okay.
I mean, it makes me feel like, okay, I'm not doing that.
So yeah, so if she was, so who do you think she's asking these?
If she were asking the community, the school, the teachers,
Yeah,
but the students.
that's what it sounds like too, is that she's asking answers. Or something.
Right.
Yeah.
If the information is available to the students, they would have it.
Yeah.
So the answer there is no.
Yeah.
A lot of people, even in administration, people really would agree that.
Right. I think you have to.
If they were investing.
Yeah, like I actually have professors that are like, you guys
Yeah.
getting outside right now. Yeah.
What's up with parking? What's up with that?
What is going
Alright,
on?
after class.
What do they know?
We'll wrap after class.
But the whole point is where the questions are get.
What was
See-
the question about under?
So it was, what was the question that was specifically to that, or what was her? Yeah, it was number 4. Do you think there is a bias regarding the target demographic for such resources?
I would maybe, if I was asking about resources, I would first ask like what resources are available, not people who ask them, right?
And then there's another one. Do you think that adequate resources exist for college applicants? So would you be then asked to like elaborate?
What adequate resources
What?
are available, because then you you could get them talking about that. We could, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If she's talking to administrators, then yeah, that's great to do that, but if she's talking to just like,
Right.
they're not gonna be able to answer those questions.
Well, yeah, and a lot of the times, college students don't know what resources are available to them.
There's
Yeah,
not,
so there's-
yeah, so she should probably reword that to are the resources out there that are known.
What are the known resources?
Yeah, maybe she could implement that into her overall, like maybe have a hub of resources.
Right.
Yeah.
Approaching a student and saying, what resources have you found?
Yeah, so getting a better feel for what students, so because she has for a target beneficiary, she has current high school students, current college students, and then current high school teachers, counselors, and faculty.
Okay.
But do you think that it would be important to add college faculty too? And do you think she needs to do 2 surveys, one for students, one for administrators? Or do you think you could ask this to have the same one? What do you think?
Separate.
Separate, yeah, me too. I agree.
I think college too, because, I mean, my high school counselor didn't help me with anything for college.
No,
No.
But like, I mean,
yeah.
the people that I talk to here, they're not counselors, but
Advisors.
they're advisors, yeah, they're really helpful. So
Yeah.
I think just like the level of skill and knowledge in the different areas is very different. It might be different now.
Yeah. Yeah, back in the day. No, and they'll be really good too to figure out, Fallon, what resources do exist, but maybe people just aren't tapping into. Because that'll be another really interesting thing in developing out your enterprise to find out if it's actually filling a need and if it's relevant. Another book that we picked up that I might pull some readings of for all you is a book called Relevance. Check it out if you want to. It's basically just like, how do you make products and programs that actually matter and actually resonate with your customers? And there's a bunch of different considerations in there, and this would be a really good one for Fallon to think about. So, okay, so unanimous feedback is, for starters, more questions to go in depth, and it'll be easier to do more questions in depth when you break it up into 2 groups. Out of those 4 beneficiary groups, who do you think are the most important? Say if you pick 2. So it's current high school students, current college students, high school administrators, college advisors, or high school advisors. Who would be 2 groups?
College students, because they've gone through the experience.
To get their feedback on what exists? Yeah, okay, college students.
I also want to talk to high school students to know, like, are you planning on going to college? If so, like, what resources do you think are even out there for you?
Okay.
Are you aware that there's, like, the people that will meet with you or scholarships you get specifically for you? Are you aware that you have to take the SAT to get into college? Like, all those different things that, you know, people don't know.
Yeah,
They just don't know.
just to kind of know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you could just ask them.
College advisors probably would have some kind of idea of what the students come in, what knowledge the students come in with.
Yeah, totally. So they'd be a really good group to actually know what's out there, potentially. Okay. So kind of unanimously, we're saying high school advisors probably can skip them. Okay. Poor college advisors, yeah. Ooh, sorry, counselors. Well, maybe, hopefully we're solving a problem. All right, so Fallon, so you heard their feedback on that. Figure out which ones you think are most important, and you can send us your feedback on that, future Fallon. Okay, so as we're going through the smart sheet, so specific. She was specific in her questions about kind of getting qualitative feedback on what specific resources they have access to, but I think you could get even more specific, whether it's financial, whether it's mentorship, whether it's capacity building, and then also get more specific about who you're asking. Second one was measurable. Yeah, measurable is probably going to be, you can do both quantitative to get an idea of what kind of funds they have access to, and also qualitative to learn about how they use their resources. But again, like Annie's found, I think you're going to have to think about the demographics and just really like who are we talking about, because different demographic groups probably have different access. Anyone have any thoughts on that? What's that?
It's true.
It's true. And so what do you all think about what the difference is basically in kind of the difference of access for this kind of stuff?
Well, I took a women's like science and gender class, and we read a lot of studies that were done, basically saying that people who have they're more low income are less likely to have access to these things because say you're not brought up in an environment. If you move from a different country, you move here, like you're not brought up in the environment where like the ins and outs of the academic world, and like that you can do these things, and that people will meet with you. If you don't know those things, then it's just kind of like there's people who are set up to go through the education system and succeed, and then there's people who are meant to stay excluded.
Yeah.
It seems like if, depending on what she's trying to figure out, whether or not there's a need for this program or what is available already,
Totally.
that would help influence who her demographic would be. But
Yeah,
also,
good
like
point.
I've taken a class that was about like immigrants, and we had a girl come in and she talked about the lack of funding for illegal immigrants.
Uh-huh.
And I know that there's like a whole area of people that are specifically working on like immigration, people having the rights to, get financial aid, and there's just different areas that you could go besides just like a school advisor. I think that there's activists and people like maybe social workers.
Interesting.
or
Yeah.
different areas that with that.
Well, yeah, the dream act is just a dream act.
Yeah. That's a very, very interesting.
In your welfare communities, they have more vested in their schools, because if they can find a good school district, and then there's a percentage going on to college, their real estate goes up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's bottom line. So that school is going to invest more in advising and getting the kids into college.
Totally.
So I don't think there's a need there.
Well,
No. Yeah. Good
And
point.
if you have like two students who say one moved here from Mexico, like parents weren't speaking English, they had to learn English when they moved here and all of that. Then you have another student who is interested in engineering as well, and they grew up in a wealthy family, and during the summers they go to like science camp every summer growing up. Obviously, college is not like a whether or not you're going, it's where am I gonna go? And
Totally.
this other student, it's more like where can I go, where can I get in? What's available to me? I didn't know that I could get on financial aid, so I worked full time and paid for my college. Those are the kinds of things that we were
Yeah.
those are the comparisons. So it's just that people honestly have no idea that there's available on this world and sending you up.
With the inevitability, you're gonna go to college.
Yeah, I saw a generation young students here who there was a big push to help them get into school. There's something out there in some areas that would be a good source of information for her as to how to do it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they had busloads of kids visit schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they helped them with the application process, et cetera. And what generated this, I have no idea.
We have a match program.
What is it?
Match.
Match?
It's where it used to be a class, and I think it's just a club now, but they go into local high schools and they talk to kids about colleges and help them with their resumes and help them, they need help with applications and things like that. So, I mean,
Oh.
yeah, when I was-
Oh, and it turned into.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's, we have that resource here that she could.
But when one of the girls was talking about deciding which college to go to, so I mean, it's all laid out for them, and I don't know why in some areas that happens and other areas it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. No, it's so interesting. I feel like it's the first time I've ever been at a university where I've seen, I keep seeing these flyers around campus that say, remember, college is a privilege, not a right. It's really pretty powerful to have that continuously throughout the student base, so very cool. So Fallon's definitely got a bunch of resources. Fallon, you're getting a bunch of cool feedback too. Hopefully you like it. You can send us a message if you're angry. Okay, so achievable. I think that just goes back, Fallon, to narrowing down the demographics and making sure that not only you're asking the right people, you have the right sample. So like, is it administrators or college students? but then also making sure that you're actually asking the people who are historically representative of the demographics that you're trying to reach. And also that you're asking questions and making them feel comfortable enough to share. Okay, so realistic. I think the whole thing was realistic. I was just saying no on questions 4 and 5, just because for a lot of people, so that was some of these bigger questions, which I think are more back again like research than they are like something you want to ask in a questionnaire. So number 4 was, do you think that there's a bias regarding the target demographic for resources? How your opinion is ultimately responsible for informing the college and scholarship application and admission process? I think it really, you might be able to use those, Fallon, but I think you're really going to have to dial down which people you're asking, because I think a lot of people aren't going to have answers to these questions unless it's really specific to what their work is. Does anyone have any ideas? Like, do you think average student would know answers to those questions? You know? Not unless they took the class. Yeah. So maybe those found are really good questions for administrators, but then having different questions for students. And yeah, time frame, I thought it was totally doable. All right, Fallon. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you very much for submitting those. So next, what we had was sample. So everyone just write like a 2 to 3 sentence max on who your sample audience is, who you're asking these questions, and if you have 2, describe them both. Cool.
On the board?
On the board. Yeah, that's it. So we have them all, and you can take a picture of them at the end. Yes, ma'am, we're doing it.
Okay.
Oh no, you're right, it's there.
Okay.
Oh, right. Well, going off of our bigger group, right?
Okay, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, going off of like food industry. If we can just use that as sample audience. You don't have to like specify that.
Do you need a pen? Get a pen. What color do you want? Red, black, or green.
Are we doing sentence or are we like listing off the subgroups of the sample?
So do both. And I mean, if you don't have to do sentence, you can do bullets. Just some way to list off. So I'm doing these 2 subgroups, and then I'm going to write kind of a little description for each per Fallon.
Okay.
So you can do whatever you want as long as you have your groups broken out and you have kind of a description of the members of the groups.
Buyers,
Well, they,
right? Or is that sending for vendors? I don't know that works.
We would just have to figure out. Vendors.
the artist part.
What about like,
They seek unique.
what are your managers like the placement?
We like management.
Management?
So wireless is
Oh, I just, what is the store itself, so much is like,
Okay.
all the business.
Yeah.
There's an online store I just discovered too, and it's right on my phone. Yeah, but that's, yeah, that's it, that's what.
Some of them
Yeah, that's-
are asking the same question twice.
Some of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
This
some
is
of mine
sample
too
audience
is can be
survey.
figured out with research versus.
Yeah, and then you find So that, you know, cops, lawyers, judges.
What else do I want to know? There's a certain LHW or NY. What I just asked, some people, I mean, maybe like,
I would say counselors, yeah. Counselors or.
what's the one of the other people that work with probation? You have to buy stuff. No, it's to then beyond. Can I go Walmart?
Is that inappropriate? You can technically call it your.
I would say it's more
Yeah, people like counselors and shit, psychologists.
Yeah.
individual or.
And that's what I want to do.
What does he want us to do?
Describe them? Well, it's like, so, I don't know.
Yo,
Well, in Japan,
or,
beyond. What does he say?
Or.
What's it say beyond?
yeah.
Really understand more. Um, Is our safe word? You know, there's certain things that a lot of change.
We
Well, you would say like sellers, right? People who like, my mom has a friend that goes around and she sells bread, so like you'll get.
Oh, see, that's like.
Small.
You know, different people sell specific things, like Columbia, they distribute does, they're here and they do certain things, yeah, so unique.
I know.
Let's go through this. I feel like this is actually going to be one of the most important things leading up to October 22nd is to figure out if these groups actually make sense. So let's actually start on this. Yeah, Brian.
Okay, so I think the audiences, one will be the communities and community health.
Okay.
And the other what else goes and the
Okay. Could you break this down a little more and describe specifically on the Seattle, would this be like professors at the UW Public Services? Like what's their profile?
Well, my idea was to email people who do research in global health that are professors at UW, as well as different organizations that have different goals in Seattle. So PATH is one that I would look into. The Gates Foundation is a different one because they mostly do funding. And then I was also gonna look into Healthcare Alliance International, because they do a lot of like improving health systems rather than just like donating supplies or.
Cool. That sounds great. Dial in on the Togo side. What's the average person you're interviewing?
I'm a little more limited there because it's only the people I know now.
Yeah.
I think it would be different when I'm there. I can actually just interview people.
Yeah. Would you be going more on the people who are on the delivery side, or the people who would be interested in actually being a part of like purchasing it?
I would probably look more into the people who
Purchasing it. Cool. So for now, are you mostly just going to focus on what you can do? Do the majority of your surveys with kind of Seattle-based professionals and organizations?
Yeah.
Cool. That sounds good. All right, that's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Would you be interested if you need someone to interview, who spent a lot of time in a different part of Africa, like Zambia? Would you be interested about the health conditions there? Because I had a friend who went there once for 2 months and then another time for 6 months. So she worked really closely in a smaller, tight-knit village, so.
Yeah.
If you want her contact info, she'd be happy.
Yeah, that could be
Do
good.
a survey or something.
Yeah, because as much as like, and it is absolutely true, our world is full of generalizations about specifically Africa, like that all the countries are the same, but there are a ton of similarities between rural villages in Zambia are probably more similar to a rural village in Togo than the cities would be or anything. Like rural areas share a lot of similarities. So that actually could be a good connection. Cool. Okay.
So, I guess it says here in London and privately owned venues, such as people that rent out their mansions or their farms or whatever,
Yeah.
and public. So, wedding venues are separate. So, I think something like and then hotels. Most hotels have their own catering and event planner and their department. So kind of asking them how they have interacted with customers and kind of what things they take into consideration and an individual with wedding plans. And then for the customer side, I thought about, expanding the age range, so for men 21 to 45, and then women 18 to 42, and then mid to upper income brackets, local and recently married, so less than 2 years.
Cool. I think your customers one is perfect as like a way of getting the people you want, and then you'll ask questions after that point. But with businesses, are you planning on hitting up all 3 of those target samples or one of them? You could do either. It would just be.
There's a lot of work to do all.
Yeah, and I mean, like with a lot of these surveys, and a lot of the point of doing this lab is just to get an idea for the market research process and to get out there and start doing surveys, and you can take them to bigger groups afterwards. Like for instance, if you're going to pick all 3, you don't have to do 10 for each, for instance. I don't know. I would say you could benefit from both. You could benefit from getting a variety of opinions from different businesses, but then you could also benefit from getting a bunch of different opinions from the same business groups. I think for you, it's like if you feel like you have a hunch that you want to talk a lot to one group, I'd do that. But if you really feel like you in general are not sure who's going to be the best fit, I'd try to talk to all types. What are you thinking?
I agree with you. I think that would be sort of something that I would do more later on down the road.
Yeah.
I think the primary one that I would probably want to is because they have their own kind of multiple areas, so I feel like they would be well-rounded, because they're reaching out to more resources than maybe like a catering or an event later at a hotel or a private.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good call. Anyone? Any thoughts? Wedding planners. I think I think that'd be a really good start.
Are you gonna try and find independent wedding planners or ones that work for like an eventful planning? I feel like if I talk to a freelance wedding planner, they would probably have more network. I feel like, yeah, because they'd have to be sustainable. Exactly. So, as opposed to someone that works for like a firm or something, they might be more limited to partnerships.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think freelance wedding planners would be the best source to get.
So on that, Quora would probably be a really good place to go, because Lord knows there's tons of places where wedding planners probably ask questions, or people ask questions for wedding planners, and you could probably find their contact via that.
Yeah.
So that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah.
Or LinkedIn. LinkedIn would probably be huge. Yeah. Like Mark was saying, LinkedIn and Quora are your friends. They're your best friends for this. Cool. That's a great start.
My turn.
Yeah.
Okay. When I was looking at this, all of a sudden it occurred to me, I need to add on my survey what websites they shop at now, because that will really identify them.
To get an idea of
who they are and where they fit.
where they shop.
That would probably clarify much more than income, where they live, or anything else. Where do they shop now?
Interesting. Okay. Both online and offline, or
Well, mainly online, but offline too.
probably be interesting to do offline as well.
Yeah, because there are certain types of clothes and shops that cater to a certain mentality.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. Anyway, the audience that I'm looking for are people that are internet shoppers, but they're also women I don't think would be interested in the site. Women who seek unique items, artsy kind of things, and they're willing to spend more. In other words, they're not dedicated to shop at Walmart prices.
Okay. So maybe more like mid-range prices, or
Yeah.
okay. And how do you, I mean, that's a really great specific group of people. How do you feel like you're going to find them?
I suspect word of mouth and trying to get a hold of people that I know other people would be the best way. I think by asking where they shop, et cetera, will weed out a lot.
Yeah.
Because I suspect I might, for instance, have to do 20 surveys to get 10 ballot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's maybe so. Yeah, and everyone think about that. With 10 surveys, like those need to be 10 quality surveys. It can't be like 3 of which the people answered 2 questions and then left or something like that. So you definitely hedge for more. So what you can use, and like what you were just talking about, is you can use these as the hook. Like you could send out an email to your friends and say, for class, I'm doing a project. I need people who fit this 2-sentence demographic. Do you know anyone? If so, send them my way. Yeah, same with all these. These can be your kind of sample hooks that you send out into the world. You post up on Facebook. I see people post kind of things like this on Facebook all the time. Also, I'm in a kind of geeky entrepreneur community, but people do like market research things all the time. That's cool, right? Yeah, exactly. We're not cool. Just count the friends. So that's definitely something you can do. And that's why these are really useful. Does anyone have any suggestions or thoughts on that kind of specific sample demographic? Thumbs up. Fallon, thumbs up. Okay. Future Fallon says thumbs up. All right. Yeah, I like that. I think that's really good. And I think it'll be interesting to pair up what places people shop with how they're self-identifying as people who buy unique artsy stuff. Then you'll really get a feel for that.
Right, that's what I suspect. Everyone wants to do.
Of course. Yeah. Cool. No, that's a great start. Definitely use these as a way to try to find the right people, because finding the right people will save you so much time in surveying. All right, team, you're up. Can't escape the camera, man.
So food industry, hotels. Who else did you say? No.
We have management, buyers, small business owners.
Because like I was telling them, is like my mom's best friend goes around to like those spaghetti factories, to grocery stores, and especially markets, and she sells them bread.
Huh.
So there's people who go around and sell specific things, and then there's also like bigger distributors or vendors that sell like Pepsi Cola, huge things. There's not just one vendor for stores.
Yeah, and again, just so I'm clear again, so this is basically to figure out the feasibility for the business. This is like to figure out what the profit margin is on these different organic products, how hard it is to distribute, where it's at, that kind of stuff.
I think, and then it's really open to partners.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think it was just to get information about, who do you use for your suppliers, and just to get more information about, like, how they did.
It's a huge market, so obviously you want to check it out and see if there's even room for you to exist in a market that's already thriving. And when people have grocery stores have partnerships and things like that, you have to take into account.
It probably be better just to go to whoever, figure out what they're buying from, and go ask them rather than the people that are buying it. So I'm pretty sure they're not
Right.
going to say how much they're getting it for and how much they're marketing it up. I don't know.
Yeah, that's maybe true. That's a good point. Something to think about for sure. Okay, keep on going.
Oh, and then the judicial system, probably the lawyers, judges, probation officers, maybe even cops that might have personal relationship with people who they've arrested or whatever. Never know.
I wonder, have you all thought about, instead of targeting people specifically in the judicial system, instead like finding nonprofits or like social service providers who deal with these groups?
Yeah.
You got that? Yeah, you got that.
Some over there.
Yeah, sorry. Your head was
Yeah,
going.
because I was saying, I worked at a substance abuse center and they had a department in there with drug court.
Yeah.
People come through.
I feel like they're going to be way more willing, because it's like their objective to make this stuff better.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to have way more information and
Yeah.
probably be way less reluctant to share. Like, cops probably do have a lot of awesome information about this, but it might be hard to get to talk to them about it.
And it's not their focus, whereas these people are trying to help.
Yeah.
Getting these things.
I would love to see y'all like walk up to a horse cop downtown or something with a survey and just ask them what's
They
up.
just don't have the time. They just don't even.
They're busy riding horses.
And how do you take care? It's like, there's doing their job.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, that attitude, they're probably not going to want to talk to you. But honestly, I think social service providers like DSHS might be another great place to look. You might find less barriers and more people who'd be really excited to talk to you about it. Maybe even social work professors at the UW Bothell. Is there a school of social work here? There is, right?
No.
Not at Boswell.
Oh, go to main campus. Yeah, maybe go to main campus, School of Social Work. Cool. I think those are good. I think it'll just be, and actually, so I know everyone wants to get out early. It's 7:40. I had one more question to go through. How early was everyone trying to get out by 8? Or was everyone trying to get out by like 7:45?
7:45.
7:45. Okay, well let's get through this one last one, and then we can figure out. And anyone who wants to stay work on stuff can, which I'm guessing is gonna be everyone, and everyone who needs to go do other stuff can do that. So the last one was basically to work you through this whole process to make sure there's no huge holes in kind of your logic about who you're gonna reach. Is what's your research objective? Like, what is the reason that you're basically, what do you want to get out of these people? And so page 26 and 27 is the reference for that. And it's a pretty in-depth one. It also gives examples of kind of, it's more like product. So this one's talking about coffee concept. Do existing customers of brand X respond favorably to this change? Do people with high blood pressure respond more favorably? Just, is it credible? All kinds of things. With you all, I want you to go to each of your demographic groups and say, in an ideal situation, if you crafted the right survey questions, what is it going to tell you? What are you going to learn about this demographic group? Like, what's the knowledge you gain? And do that for each of your demographic groups. Break. You want a different colored pen?
No.
I got a green one.
Is
Is that clear to everyone?
Pricing.
Is that clear? Just basically like what would be the thing you want to learn?
We're gonna be able to determine things.
And try to be as specific as possible.
Without asking other people, you know.
Okay.
We'll know, we'll have to figure out what a markup makes sense. I was just thinking more like, how do we get people to buy from us, right? Like,
Yeah.
who do we need to talk to and what would, you know, what is their interest in this type of program that's, you know, community oriented? And just, that was most of what I was thinking. So I don't know.
And feel free to put multiple things that you want to learn. Like it could be a bullet list, or it could be a sentence. You know.
Freebie. I was wondering, like, as far as like asking, ones that they've carried produce or done health initiative. What I was wondering was like, in those food deserts, if you did carry produce before, why did you stop? Like, what didn't work? You know, or if you had those things available, or if you don't have them available, why don't you? So kind of like, I don't know how to say it.
Well, I mean, I think we could tailor that to fit all of them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, for me, I was just thinking that we need to find an audience for our product, that's one word or whatever. So just figuring out why they're buying the product, why they aren't.
Right.
That's the way.
Like, is there an average amount of I know, it's confusing. Because what I was wondering was if there was an average time that then you could.
I found yours that I just mapped out for you.
Right.
Get it?
Yeah, you can.
Sorry, it's backwards. Might not help you.
Asking, a program, there's programs out there, and they just ask you.
Okay.
It just depends on what, it doesn't even depend on what it was, it just, however long that program is designed for, some 6 months, some 9 months, some are a year. So like,
So would our program match?
a lot of them, like, I know a lot of people that, instead of going to jail with the boot camp, they would go
Yeah.
like 6 months. And if they made it through there, then they were good after that.
But if you don't,
Then
you're in
just go
trouble.
to jail.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe. Still,
Maybe,
that'd be like some of the research.
so we want to know about alternative solutions, what's available. Because we're doing an alternative therapeutic solution, so we want to know what other ones are out there, right? Because that would be our competitive market. Is that what our objective is? I think that's one of them, so to establish a competitive market.
Yeah.
Or to establish who is. I think with some of the questions that Danielle was asking, that's what she was going for.
Yeah, does anyone know where Danielle is today?
She
Yeah,
told you
class.
What is it?
she said that you, the before she,
She has
before the
class
quarter started. That she-
Monday and Wednesday, she said.
Oh, she sent it a long time ago. That's right. Cool.
6 to 10 or something.
Well, Danielle, you're
I know
gonna,
you're out of here.
yeah, you're done, Danielle.
Okay. So I think that's a good objective. Obviously, we need that.
So are these objectives like concrete, like this is it? Or are we flexible with?
Totally. Yeah, no, I think the goal is just to take your audiences, like with you have a bunch of different people you've asked some questions and a variety of things. So it's just like narrowing down what do you really want to know, and then you'll design your questions to get to that.
Sure, okay.
Is anyone ready to share theirs, just so we can
Let me share.
start doing? Okay, you all can finish up if you need.
It's like my son-in-law.
What's that?
My son-in-law is head of here.
Oh, okay.
I know, in-law.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. What I basically want to know is whether the market has an interest in purchasing at a price that will provide a profit.
Okay.
Because there's no point in offering something if there isn't a profit.
Okay. And so you not only need to have an idea of what the price of these things is going to be, but also what the costs. And then I think the one issue of that is figuring out what the right amount to set it at it. Because like you could say a random amount and have people respond to it, but that might be totally different from the actual amount that your women are able to make it for.
Well, I thought I'd research like on eBay.
Okay, just like get a range.
Right.
Yeah.
But and also it's basic interest. I mean, for instance, I keep hearing arm warmers. Maybe next year arm warmers are out.
Yeah. Okay.
You see.
So you're saying more about the styles or more about the platform and kind of like the general goods?
The styles, the basic goods.
So you'll have samples and kind of price ranges.
Right.
Sounds great.
And see what's out there. Also, like I said, for instance, for me, my taste may not match what the general public wants.
There we go.
You know.
Cool. I think that's a straightforward one. All right. Next.
Okay.
You're up.
So I forgot what we were doing.
What do you want to get out of your survey?
Yes, in Togo, I want to see if it is useful interventions and if it is affordable for people to buy insurance.
Yeah.
And if it would actually improve health, if people would actually do more preventative care, go to the doctor.
Okay. And for the ones you're going to be doing now?
Would it get funded? Is this something that people are interested in? And has it been done before by these organizations? And if they are any work?
And maybe widen Togo to West Africa. I do West Africa instead of Togo. And then maybe another good filter on that would be, instead of saying, what to get funded is a good question, but also what barriers do you see to pulling this off?
Yeah.
Could be a good one, because they might have an idea of that. Oh. All right. Annie, what you got?
All right, for businesses, who's their main demographic that they serve?
Okay.
What sustainable alternatives are they using currently?
Okay.
What is their market price for their services?
Including sustainable ones or
Yes.
both? Okay. Cool.
Customers, is there a market for green weddings? And if there is this green weddings actually I want to rephrase that. So does the branding of green marketing sell? Or green weddings sell?
Yeah, will they pay the extra
Yes,
price? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And do people prefer companies that benefit other people over companies that are kind of just like, for example, would they choose Tom's over like another company?
Yeah.
Knowing that it benefits someone else.
You should really because then you might get into the same issue that we talked about earlier, where it's like, do you want to help the world? Are you a good person? Everyone's gonna say yes.
Yeah.
You're really gonna have to see there's like 3 things they're gonna have to hold and prioritize: green, cost, and paying it forward. And I would definitely be open to the fact that they might say, I'm willing to pay more for a green wedding, but I'm not willing to pay more so someone else can have a wedding, or vice versa. It might be totally different. People might say, I don't really care as much about the green stuff, but I do care that someone else would be able to have this. And I think that'll really help you to not necessarily decide if you're going to do one or the other, but just have a good idea of what people are most interested in. So those are both great, but I think just make sure to ask questions that make the people choose which one's the most important.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Do you have it?
No, I was gonna say, doesn't every like mid to upper income person in Seattle want green? I mean, they do.
No.
They
No,
don't.
no.
They don't.
No, a lot of people don't care.
It's not even.
What?
It's
Seriously?
not even.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's planning a wedding right now.
Weddings are so wasteful.
Yeah.
I think they would think of themselves as green people, but do they want a green wedding?
I mean, I think that they would find that intriguing though.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe it's what they already want.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say everyone.
Yeah.
You're maybe too hopeful for humanity. I like it. You're in the right place.
Like humanity, no,
It's
Oh, I like that.
probably also
Nice.
nice to think it was an option. You know, like if I were to plan a wedding right now, had I not taken this class and thought about it, I would probably be one of those really wasteful people.
Sure, I mean,
Not
and they are, in
intentionally,
general,
but
they
just
just
because
are.
that's the nature of.
Thanks.
And that's another thing, like, what would the green wedding entail? I mean, when you're saying wasteful, are you talking food waste? Because is that something that you can even really manage very well?
That's-
I mean,
that's
where would
Andy's
the
job.
green products come?
I don't know. Yeah, is it like garbage created? Is it electricity?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you have all those things listed?
I have an idea for each of them. I mean, for like food waste, there are ways where you can serve sustainable amounts and then use
Yeah.
the leftovers for something else.
Totally.
You know,
A lot of
food
people
based
do.
whatever.
That's why people do the invitations. If you're for sure coming or not,
Yeah,
you are, then
Yeah.
you're gonna have X amount of food.
totally.
My aunt and my cousins, and they sent it to me, and then I lost it. And they were like, "If you could really come and let us know, because we're not gonna have no more food.
That's smart.
We're gonna have 20
Yeah.
meals. We're not gonna have any more."
But does that seem cheap or does that seem green?
That seems
With her,
Smart.
cheap and
well, smart too. Yeah, I think it can be smart and green and cheap. It can be all of those.
Right, as long as it comes across that
When
way.
you have a caterer
That's a
and
good
you're
point.
paying $30-40 per head.
Per
Per plate, yeah.
Or
You know.
more.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people do that. Even people
Yeah.
who have really nice weddings, I've seen them.
Oh yeah, it's just smart. You don't want to waste.
Yeah.
They're so expensive.
And it could be, yeah, for being cheaper and not wasting the food, you know.
All right. So what about you all? What are your research objectives?
Okay, well, yes, basically, how do we get people to buy from us? That's what all that, or that, like, questions and surveys about grocery stores and who buys and vendors, so it's basically saying where we fit in.
Yeah.
And then, as far as, like, the judicial system questions, to establish who our competitive market is, because there are nonprofits out there.
Yeah.
There are programs, and there are court programs that could be doing similar things as us. So obviously, we need to assess them and, you know, kind of figure out who we're gonna be competing with, because I'm sure there's other people that we're gonna be competing with.
Yeah.
And then basically, overall, just assessing the, like, does this fit into the community? Is it needed? Are there enough low-risk offenders, first-time offenders, who have X amount of time that they can commit to this?
Yep.
That will work.
Cool. Those are good. I'd say broaden how do we get people to buy from us,
Okay.
and like really dive in deep on what that means, because the questions are going to have to be super specific, and they'll be able to tell you a bunch of suggestions in their businesses, and I guess you can bring all that together in like a composite of what your business could look like by borrowing from all theirs. But that seems good. All right. So, okay, just quick recap, and then for whoever needs to go, you can go. October 22nd, you need to have 10 surveys done by then. 10 surveys each. October 22nd. So 5:45. That's our virtual meeting. It's a call-in, and you need to show up and you need to stay for a bit. But if some people definitely have more questions than others, I think it'll be really great for everyone just to hear what's happened in everyone else's surveys and hear kind of like best practices. I will record it, but it's one of the things y'all need to do. You need to show up for it, just so we can have all that information. Yeah, so that's all. Use the book. I'll resend Mark's resources. Because especially there were some really good ones of how do you get in front of customers and track them down. Remember, take pictures of these, use these descriptions to send out to friends and say, like, this is the demographic I need. Do you know anyone who can help me? Cool. All right. Everyone say goodbye to Fallon and Danielle. Bye, Fallon and Danielle. See you next time.
And that's the webinar, right?
That is the webinar.
Yes.